Well, hello everybody. So here's our video where we go over parallel circuits and we have some practice problems too. We know that voltage in a series circuit is going to split up between the different bulbs. So if you have like a 4-volt battery, if it were a series circuit, you would split that up. You'd give maybe 2 volts to the first bulb and 2 volts to the second bulb, and they would add up to make 4, which is the voltage of the battery. But in parallel circuits, we see that it doesn't work that way. Because the first point is that parallel circuits have multiple paths. Okay, if you're an electron, you see I drew 2 examples as for an electron here, one with spiky hair and one with curly hair. And the spiky hair one is going to choose to go through the first bulb, but after it goes through that bulb, it's going to go straight back to the battery. But the curly hair one's going to say, well, that path looks a little crowded through the first bulb, so instead I'm going to keep going to a place where I could go faster over here in the second bulb because it's not as crowded. So I'm going to go all the way over here through the second bulb, not through the first one. But then I'm still just going to go straight back to the battery. So the electrons get to pick which bulb they want to go through. And they're only going to pick one bulb. Electrons pick only one bulb to go to. Okay? And then they go straight back to the battery after they pick that one bulb. So in a series circuit, which we've talked about before, the electrons have to stop at every bulb. I'm going to drop a little volts in the first bulb, a little in the second. Here in a parallel circuit, though, after they leave the battery, they choose one of the bulbs to go through, and then they go straight back to the battery. So, what's the deal with voltage then, right? So in our example here, I drew like a 4-volt battery. And let's think about what the spiky hair person does, all right? They pick up 4 volts at the battery, and they go to the first bulb, and they got to drop off volts when they get to a bulb so they could light the bulb. So what does it drop off? Does it drop off like 1, 2, 3, or 4 volts here at the first bulb? Well, this is the only bulb it's going to go through. The spiky hair guy is going to go through only R1, and then he's going to go straight back to the battery. So what does he do at R1? Well, he has to go back to the battery empty-handed. So that means when he goes through that one bulb he chooses, he's got to drop all his volts at that bulb. So he's going to drop all 4 volts. You know, if it was a 5-volt battery, he would drop 5 volts there. If it was 6 volts, he would drop 6 volts. So what we wrote is they choose one bulb to go to, and they drop all of their volts at that bulb. They drop all of them. So curly hair doesn't need to stop at R1. Curly hair electron is going to go to bulb 2 holding 4 volts because they came from the same battery. But it's only going to go through that one bulb. It's not going to go through this one, only this one, and then it's going to go straight back. So because curly hair only goes through one bulb too, they're going to drop all their volts at that one bulb, all 4 of them that they picked up. So what we see is that the voltage of the bulb, each bulb, is equal to the voltage of the battery. All right, the voltage of each bulb is equal to the voltage of the battery. Let's write that down. This makes the math a lot easier for voltage here. With series, you had to add them up or sometimes do some subtraction. Here, you just say they're all the same. All right, and here's our equation for that the voltage of the battery equals the voltage of R1 equals the voltage of R2. And if there were a third bulb, we would have some electrons going there, but that would be the only bulb they stopped at. So it would still be 4 volts. Every new bulb would get the same voltage. And this is the way your house is set up, all right? except in your house, every plug, instead of every bulb, every plug is 120, but they're all the same voltage. All right. So let's go over some things we've seen in labs with parallel circuits that are more conceptual, not about voltage really here. What happens when you unscrew a bulb in the parallel circuit? Well, if you unscrew your first bulb, does the second one go out? It does in a series circuit. If this were a series circuit, that one would go out. But you could see unscrewing a bulb, kind of like turning a lamp off in your house, it doesn't make the other lamp turn off because this one still has a loop. Even if you take this one out, this one still has a good loop to the battery, okay? So unscrewing bulbs does not turn off other bulbs because they each have their own independent path. All right, and that's the way it works in your house. There's wires going to each plug separately. Your house is set up in parallel. Turning off the TV doesn't shut off any other things in the room. All right, adding bulbs. What if we were to add bulbs to this circuit? Does that, in a series circuit, that would make that dimmer because they would have to share the voltage more, you know? And every new bulb you added, everything would get less volts because they have to share more with the new bulbs. But does that work that way in parallel? Well, adding bulbs in parallel, it does not change the brightness because it does not split the volts with other bulbs. Whatever the voltage is here, if it's 10 volts, then every new bulb gets 10 volts, and it doesn't lower the voltage of your previous bulb, okay? Because that's equal to the voltage of the battery. All right, so adding bulbs doesn't make other ones brighter because they each have their own independent path. I mean, it doesn't make each one dimmer if you add bulbs. Okay, so here's your example problem. Again, not a lot of math going on here because if I tell you the voltage of the battery, say, is 8 volts, what's the voltage of each of the bulbs in this circuit? Well, what's our rule? The voltage of each bulb is equal to the voltage of the battery. So if I know the battery is 8 volts, then so is every bulb 8 volts too, okay?